Thank you to the Westminster Center for Faith and Service and the Black Student Union for sponsoring this podcast.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for returning for another podcast of After the Tassel. We have a special guest today. His name is Dre Smith, and he is a graduate of Westminster College from 2015. We're back as host. My name is Michelle Craighead, and my colleague Mandy Plyben. We work for the Office of Advising and Career Development. So as you guys know, we're interviewing guests who have graduated from Westminster, so we're pleased to have him with us. So we're just going to get right to it. So thank you again for coming and joining us on this lovely Friday morning.
You're welcome.
So tell us a little bit more about your career path since you graduated from Westminster.
Since I graduated, honestly, one of the kids who go play professional basketball, overseas or something like that. So, my very last year, I tore my ACL, and so I was recovering from that. And so, I took a semester off just because I had graduated in December. So I just worked out for a while, rehabbed for a long time, and so started trying out for some teams. So I go to grad school because I knew getting a master's I wanted to play in grad school, but getting a master's is what I really wanted as well. And so I had actually made the team at Missouri Baptist, but what happened was since I think I was 25 at the moment, 24, 25, I was just at the age to where I couldn't live on campus. So they kind of threw me in a money situation and then, living situation in St. Louis. So I just turned it down. The coach was actually really cool about it. He was going to hold my scholarship for the next year if I wanted to come back. But I just told him that I just don't think that I'll be able to do it. And so when I moved back to Columbia, I just started grad school, just searching for things to do. And I actually ran into one of my old teammates that I played with at high school, and he told me about the new head coach looking for coaches because he had lost a few. And so I was hesitant about it. I was nervous. And then, I finally contacted him. He interviewed me. And ironically, it was funny because he was like, okay, I'll get back to you next week about all the finalists. And then literally the next day he called me and was like, you're hired. And, I think that was a blessing in disguise just because I went from there. I was an assistant at the high school for 3 years at Hickman. And so in that time, I just grew as a coach. And so that's where it landed me where I'm at now as far as coaching at Stevens College, the women's college here in Columbia. And so that was a huge step for me. So just me actually taking a risk and taking a chance. I've coached before, but I never coached with structure, with a lot of pressure. I never realized that how big it was, being at a class 5 school and, you play against a better competition and you run into a lot of people. So that was a surprise for me. Now from the I won't say that's not professional, but from a more professional side, I even got into teaching I was substitute teaching. I substitute taught in Fulton actually for part of 2017. And so when my friends graduated, I was like, well, there's no point in me going back to Fulton. So I did the Columbia district. And so I actually substitute taught at Battle multiple times. And this lady named Rachel McCarthy, ironically, her husband used to be my teacher. So that's but she came into one of my classes. She just asked me, it was like, have you ever thought about being a teacher? And I was like, ironically, I'm actually in grad school now to get my master's in teaching. She was like, okay, well, we'll talk. And, it was like, I know she's busy. So time went on. I'm like, man, I really hope I get a job. And so I'm still substitute teaching. And so I applied for a TA position at a behavior school. That job was rough, but I think if I never took that job, it would have never prepared me for the job I'm in now. So the behavior school is pretty tough school. We dealt with a lot of behaviors, a lot of attitudes, but I got to bond with the kids. The kids got to understand me. I understood them. And so just from there was what prepped me for going about high school. And now I'm a learning specialist about a high school in the special education department. And so I could, to sum it up in a career path, just knowing people, networking, and just being your genuine self is what led me to be a high school teacher and a college basketball coach.
And I don't know if we covered it, but what was your major at Westminster?
Oh, so that's what makes it even funny now that I skipped over that. So my major was actually health and wellness.
Okay.
My goal was to go to grad school to get my MBA to open up a health clinic. So like to open up a business. That was my goal. And like I had like a lot of people like on board with it. Like I had other people that was gonna join. And then I think that's when I was really pushing for basketball, and I was like, oh well, I was getting scared about the NBA because I seen a lot of a lot of classes I had to take, and I was like, oh man, that might be a lot. So I was a little scared, but it just some just struck with me. It was like, all right, just do the teaching. I don't know what it was. Like I knew I wanted to get my master's, I just didn't know what I wanted to get it in, and so I'm just like, I woke up one morning, and it's definitely a calling, and I was just like, I think teaching allows me to impact a lot of people. So I was like, that's what I'm gonna do.
Wow. I mean, it's pretty awesome that, you ran into all these people, almost serendipitously, and, you use those networks and you weren't afraid to pivot to, go after and realizing what your passion was. I mean, what made you think that, you said you wanted to make an impact, but what made you think you wanted to make that impact? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. So I'm gonna say the lasting impacts that people had on me.
Yeah.
Like, to name a few, like a guy named Gary Pearson, he was my basketball coach in middle school and back in Chicago, because that's where I'm originally from. He was like an intense guy, but he was real about like his approach. And so he was real genuine. He was super, super, super intense. But he wanted us to, perform at our highest level. But I think he was just testing our how I said our perseverance, or how well we could take adversity. So him having an impact on me was probably like one of the biggest things for me being a basketball player and a coach. So like a lot of times I think back, like a lot of him come out of me when I coach.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what made you choose to attend Westminster? So you're from Chicago. I'm assuming you moved to Columbia.
Yeah.
When did you move to Columbia?
I moved to Columbia in 2008.
Okay. So when you were in high school and you were thinking about, what to do after high school, what were things that you were considering? Were you always planning on attending college? Were you thinking about other opportunities? Can you share what you were going through as a high school student trying to decide what to do after graduation?
Yeah, so when I moved here, I knew I was gonna go to college. My mom made sure that I was gonna make it to college, and so honestly, my senior year, I was like up in the air. I thought I was gonna go to Quincy University, and so I really, really wanted to play basketball. Now, I'll say my life turned out. I tell everybody this. My life turned out great. I can't say it'd be better if I'd have made the choice of going to Quincy, but my life turned out great when I went to Missouri Valley. Now that's where I started off at. So Missouri Valley offered me a basketball scholarship, and like I took it with no brainer. And so if I were to rethink that, I probably, even though Quincy was expensive, I think I possibly I think I could have been a doctor. I think. And so that was what I was gonna go. I was gonna go major in accounting, or I was gonna do med. And so, this the chips fall, and so I went to Missouri Valley, and I loved the professors. I just hated the school. Like overall, like I hated the school. And like now I understand, like no knock to the head coach there, but me and him just didn't get along really well. And I mean, I'll take it, upon me. So for all the kids that's gonna listen to this, like, I was a freshman. I had an ego. Like I thought I was better than a lot of people, but I didn't realize that when you recruit, you get the best out of the other areas. So I was just like, some people can actually hoop too. So, But me and him didn't get along really well. Now I understand why we didn't, but I mean, we have a better relationship. Actually went and ran a camp at his school last summer. So, I mean, we talked to stuff like that. So, I mean, it's no big deal. When you get older, all that stuff is water under the bridge. But so I left there and I moved back to Columbia. And so I moved back to Columbia because I just didn't know what I wanted to do yet. I didn't even know if I wanted to go to school, honestly. But I was kind of chasing basketball at that point. So I just enrolled in MACC and like, you know, not trying to, me and my friend always laughed about this, but not trying to make it seem like I'm just a genius. But high school was hard, but college was like super easy for me, like extremely easy. So like when I went to MACC, like, I mean, I don't know how it is now. People always joked about it, but I mean, I charted a 3.3 GPA, like with ease, like didn't even bat an eye. And so like from there, I was like, okay, you know, I really want to play basketball again. And so I started looking at, I visited like a few schools. I started looking at schools around the area. And so I was going to go to the school called Robert Morris in Springfield or Peoria. It's one of those in Illinois, but it's multiple campuses. So I was going to go to one of those schools. Like I signed and everything to go play basketball there. And then I had a friend, his name's Antoine Harris. He was just like, football at Westminster, you should come. And I was just like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. And then when I realized how close it was, I was like, oh, I'm up in the air a little bit. I just don't know. And like, I waited it out till like July maybe. And I think my turning point was probably just knowing that, because I'm a small school type person, I think it being close and the campus, I really like the campus. And I think it was my friend was there. I think just a lot of that was the whole cups of the whole thing. So I was just like, all right, I'm gonna just take a shot at Westminster, and it actually turned out great. Like that probably was the best decision. Even when I got there, and like I said, I'm gonna keep saying this. I'm gonna tell the kids, and I see it on Twitter a lot with the coaches. Even when I got there, it was like all right, like it was a experience my first year. I like requested a transfer, like literally after that, chasing basketball again. I visited schools, but the best decision of my life was to stay. I decided I'm not gonna transfer, and that probably was like the best decision I like ever made. I still have teammates and friends that I met there. We literally started a group chat in 2016, and here we 4 years later, still got the same group chat and talk like every day. You know,
Dre, what made you stay?
I'm gonna give it to her. Hopefully she win an award. Amanda Goen made me stay, because me and her have like a great relationship. And so she like impacted me a lot, like motivated me. Like she motivated me on the health side at first, and then so it motivated me even more about like, you know, what I could do in my life, like basically like empowering me. And I was just like, man, you know, like I couldn't leave her because she did a lot for me. So that means I just have to straight go start a new relationship, you know, with like another school. And I was just like, you know, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna just, you know, my friends here, like I'm just see where it goes. And like I said, I'm gonna keep saying that was probably the best decision I ever made.
That's so awesome. It's great to hear students talk so nicely about faculty.
Yes.
And hopefully she will be listening whenever this podcast gets released, because I think that'll make her feel really good.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna tell her to listen to it.
Yeah.
Oh.
So what made you talked about how you wanted to be a doctor when you were considering Quincy University. What made you choose health and wellness here? Why didn't you go down the pre-med kind of path here?
So I think, I'm not sure. I think I went to MBCC. I think they didn't have pre-med. I think they had pre-nursing or something like that. And so I was just like, all right, well, the health is out the window. And so I tried to do OT. So I thought, because I started off at Missouri Valley as I wanted to be an athletic trainer, so like a physical therapist. And then when I went to MACC, I wanted to do occupational therapy. And then so when I left there, I was like, okay, I need to find something that's super similar to this. And so health and wellness was like one of them. And so it's kind of ironic because on the side a little bit, I haven't done it as much because of COVID, but the years prior, I like on my own, like it's not huge, but a skills training business. So like I train basketball players. But like on the side of that, like I try to help people with health and wellness. So I help people with diets and stuff like that. Like, and working out. And so I was like, okay, this pretty much the same thing as health, like as like a physical therapist, but like I'm like a quote unquote trainer at some point. But like I knew I didn't want to be a trainer, but I wanted to actually own a business. And so I was just like, okay, well, this is where it goes to where where I was come from MACC, and I actually looked at a school in Chicago named Aurora, and that's another D3 school, and I was for sure was gonna go study medicine there, pre-med there, like for sure. It was like without a doubt. This school was just too expensive. Like I think it was as much as Westminster, but then again, like as we do, it's crazy thinking about it, as we do our recruiting visits, for the girls who come visit our school at Stevens, we ask them like, if you got a checklist and these schools, our school just don't meet that checklist, we're not going to, try to sway you into choosing us. And so I think being close to home, well, being close to my mom in Columbia was more than being close to like my other family in Chicago. And so like, cause Aurora is like an hour away. And my mom was scared to death of me. Like she didn't want me to going back to Chicago because she just couldn't, I want to say she couldn't supervise me and stuff like that. But being close to my mom was easier to make a decision.
Man, I hope my son is 10, and I hope he thinks about that when he graduates high school.
So if he don't, I guarantee when stuff gets
I'll be moving wherever he is.
Yeah, well, that'll work too.
Oh, well, it sounds like your mom was especially a big influence in your life, like where you chose to go to school and, your decision to even go to college. So what other expectations did your family have for you as far as your career?
Very, very high expectations. My mom's side of the family is very educated. So my aunt actually just got her PhD.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so like, it's I think we get it from my grandpa. It's like a gene, I feel like. But she held me to the highest standard because she knew how important academics was. And like at that age, it's hard to know and understand what grades mean. I think I probably didn't realize the impact of grades. It's probably about to sound like horrible, but I know my mom beat it at me, but I probably didn't realize the impact until probably like my sophomore year in high school. And so like I knew it's things that I naturally like had. So like I naturally worked hard. I naturally had a work ethic. I naturally wanted to be the best. So those things was like natural. So like when it came out in academics, like it showed. Like I've always had good grades. Now when like my 7th grade and 8th grade year was kind of rough because that was one of the years I felt like I was finding myself, like everybody was getting popular. Like I was more worried about, if the girls like me, if I played basketball, football and stuff like that. And so like my mom was on me then. And then my 9th grade year, I snapped it back in shape. I think I had like a 3.6 or something like that, like my freshman year. Wow. And then year is when I struggled a little bit. But then I was like, okay, if I want to go to school, got to get together. Now, my junior year in high school, I struggled a lot. I struggled a lot. And then my senior year turned it around. And then that's when I hit college. And college was super. She didn't even have to stress the importance in college because I knew the financial investment. So that's kind of how I blew it out the water when it came to that.
And you talked about your work ethic was natural to you. Even in high school, have you noticed a difference between your work ethic as a high schooler and then the work ethic of the young people you work with now?
Yes. So how I want to say it is, I would say it's about the same, but it's not. So about the same as in like me seeking help and stuff like that, or me finding resources. It's the same there because like I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't even, and I'm a grad at Westminster. I didn't know how to ask a question properly until I got to Westminster. And that's when I probably asked my professor like 50 million questions at that point. But it's kids asking questions and stuff like that. We were probably about the same. Now, the effort in which I want to turn stuff in on time, I was staying up late, or like even if I didn't get the best grade, it looked like I was like actually trying. Now that's way different. There's some kids to where like you actually have to beg them to at least turn in something. You extend deadlines for them to like to turn in something, or you have to work with them or be a nuisance just so they can, actually do the work. And that goes with like what you just said. People don't have parents like my mom was on me, and a lot of kids don't have that. But here's go the beautiful part about teaching, which is so what pays back so well, is that you're that person to motivate them. So even though it's like extra stress or extra, it'll make you tired, just you helping them and motivating them and guiding them is what allow them to know that okay, when I leave from you, they're gonna work harder for somebody else. They may not have worked hard for me, but it's a transformational relationship. It's not transactional. So
I
love that. I love that. So what advice would you give these students that you work with now, or the current college freshmen here at Westminster? What kind of advice would you give them?
I'll advise them to ask questions first. I won't even say go straight to networking. Ask questions, and then after you ask questions, networking. And so like ask questions is simple as like what you all asking me, or why did you want to major in what you major in? Why did you want to come to Westminster? What made you do this? What made you do that? Like people sometimes they was like, oh man, like you scrutinize everything. I just like, I'm gonna give everybody a tip. I read and listen about this guy named Robin Drake. He's a spy, was a spy recruiter for I think the Navy SEALs, I could be wrong, but for the US. And so he studied behavior. So he basically want to know what make people make the decisions that they make. And so he got a book about predicting people's behavior. And so a lot of reason why I ask questions is because it helps me like, okay, if I meet a student or if I meet anybody and I could see that they was rude to somebody else, and like, okay, I look at the situation why they was rude. And then what they say, and like I just go to the deepest detail that I could boil down, like, hey, he probably had, or she probably had something, happen to her in this nature or such and such. So like I tell people just ask questions, because you could the biggest thing you can boil down to the smallest detail, and it'll help you understand. And then from there, the networking part is like not networking like, hey, let me get your number, man. We probably could, meet something like that. It's more so like if you genuinely run across somebody and you feel like, I'll give an example because I don't want to come up with a story. It's hard. Example is the head coach at William Woods. Me and him, he was from Chicago, ironically, and so I think I may have told him, congratulations on the new job and stuff like that. And he opened his practice up to like, coaches of the surrounding areas. I mean, for many reasons, he did that for networking. He did that to meet head coaches or to meet high school coaches so he can recruit players. You build a genuine relationship at that point. So like here at Columbia College here in town has a great relationship with Rockbridge. I think they have about 3 or 4 Rockbridge players that play for them. And so just from there, me and William Woods head coach Charles Belt, like we talk from time to time. One of his GAs, me and him talk quite a bit. And so it was like a point to where he just texted me random one day. It was like, hey, I need your help. Can you help me, with this offense? Like, can you come down? Like literally out of nowhere, he asked me, can I come down in like 30 minutes? I was like working on some stuff, and I was like, sure, I'll be down. And so like, I came down there, we talked, he gave me like his offenses he was going to run this year and stuff like that. And so building that like relationship to where you're networking with people, who knows that one time I was reliable, he can, hear a job come up and was like, man, he's a reliable guy. Like you should take him. And boom, there you go. I'll give another story too. it's a lot of basketball stories, so I need to probably talk about teaching, but I love that. Another basketball one was we had played, we lost the game because of snow day at Hickman, and so we had to pick up a game, and so we picked up the number 2 team in the state, Webster Grove, and so it was just a random game, a random Saturday. Like it was a straight varsity game, no JV game, just random day. So we weren't expected to win that game, and so we lost by 2. It was probably like the best game like ever seen on camera. And so just ironically, like I'm pretty intense, like, not trying to toot my horn, I kind of know what I'm doing. So like, I'm along with the head coach barking out signals, just helping. And the head coach of Webster Grove never knew anything about him. He stopped me after the game. It's like, the energy you bring is crazy. He's like, you're going to be an amazing coach one day. He was like, man, I'm just proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. Never met this guy. Emailed him afterwards. Me and him talked for a while. He was like, I really want you to work my camp in the summer. And I was like, all right, that's cool. I didn't know he was going to retire. He retired. I applied for the head coaching job. This is just his character. I think he knew that my application came in. He talked to the AD. The AD told me, it was like, you're not going to get the job. We actually hired somebody, but I'll give your information to the head coach. The head coach contacted me probably like a week later. Me and him met in St. Louis. Me and him are actually really cool now. I turned down the job because I just felt like it was just a lot of uncertainty with like the professional side, like me being a teacher. So me and him is real close. I got the old Jay Blossom, the old head coach. We're real cool. And so worked his camp, met like a ton of other coaches in the area. So it's like everywhere I go somewhere, no matter where I go, I probably know a coach. Like I probably know like, hey, blah, blah, like we'll sit down and talk. Or if a kid now is getting to the point where I know college coaches, like if a kid's searching for a school, I'll be like, hold on, let me, get contact information. I send out some film, like, so like just having that connection in, not like, I haven't talked about my religion yet, but in the Christian, just not making it about yourself, making it for other people. So when you make your network for helping other people, good always come back. Like it always comes back.
Yeah, I think your stories and just your advice in general is so good to hear. I know Michelle and I talk to students about networking all the time, and it's such a scary kind of word. And I know I've said this, and I think pretty much all of the podcasts we've done, because at some point we end up talking about networking. But I think it's, with your examples, it really does show clearly that it's not about putting on a suit and a tie and going to a career fair or going to a business function. It's about the relationships and the conversations that you have, even a casual conversation or a casual kind of meeting a person. Those can create such great professional relationships. And you just don't know it yet. So
I agree.
Encourage our listeners, our student listeners, to just be open to any conversation that you have with someone, especially if it's in an industry or career field that you're interested in, because you never know, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, you may realize, oh, I kept this relationship up with this person. They could maybe help me, and you reach out to them, and then they can really help you make some connections.
Yeah, and not even in your example that you stated earlier was not burning bridges. You said you didn't get along with your coach at Missouri Valley, right? And you ended up working his camp later on. So making sure that,
I think, being humble enough to realize as you age, you realize what you were like as a younger person, and you may have said things that you regret, or you may have done things that were not the smartest decisions. But I think just to be humble, to accept that, and to accept that you grow as you get older, and be okay to eat your words, have a little piece of humble pie if you need to. Yeah.
Well, you've talked about building all these networks and, following up with some of these contacts. What are your tips for being successful when you're actually in the job?
Oh man, so the biggest I'm gonna start off with teaching, because that differs from me being a coach. I think I won't say being a coach is easy, but it's I won't even say it's easier said than done. It's about the same. But being a teacher, the first thing is being yourself. Just being yourself is like the biggest thing, because not even your coworkers, if your students figure out that you're a phony, it'd be real tough to teach.
Yeah.
They won't take you serious.
Yeah.
Now, outside of that, being professional. So, as soon as you get into the profession, I've never had the experience, just because like I've always had good relationships with people and good, impressions. But if you were to ever get into a situation where you just really disagree with somebody, sometimes you gotta just bite that bullet. You gotta swallow your pride and just be professional about it, because you may never know who's watching. It's like, hey, I really like that you handled this situation. I think you could be the department chair next year or something like that. So those things, being professional. Be willing to use others, and it's gonna sound like insane, but it's legit. Be willing to use other ideas, like people ideas besides yours first. Here's why. I got a mentor. Me and her, like, we're really cool too. She was my mentor last year, and we joke all the time. And the way that she do things was the hardest way possible. She did not teach me any shortcuts, like no shortcuts at all when it came to my job. And I'm just like, why don't you just teach me this way? And so now she left, and it speak volume to her. She's in the PhD program now, so that means I got a good mentor. She, I come back to her and be like, can't you just do it? When I asked her for help, I'd be like, can't you just do it this way? And she was like, well, you can, but blah, blah. And I was like, see, you always got me doing the long way. So I say you use others' advice first, because you can figure out your own way. You figure out your own way, and your own way is wrong. Now you don't even know how to do it anybody else's way, because you didn't take time to listen. So using others' ideas first. With both coaching and teaching, be on time. Be on time and be prepared. I'm gonna say this: in coaching, it's easy. I said, teaching was a lot harder. I was always on time. Was I always prepared? Yes and no. This year, I'm like, that's why I like this. My second year, super prepared. Like, I prep my lesson plans weeks at a time. I know what I'm going to teach all the time. I know how I'm going to counter situations. I just know how I want my stuff to be set up. My IEP meetings, I got like my scheduled out already. I'm not falling behind on IEP meetings. So I'm not crunched for time like how it was last year in a frenzy. So just being prepared. Let me think of something else. Speak to everybody. I read this book, Amanda Goins, again, she's best. She sent me this book out of nowhere. It's called When It Starts in a Locker Room. And so just like the 7 C's of coaching and stuff like that. And so, or the 7 C's of building a successful program. But communication is the biggest. So no matter who it is, speak to everybody. If I see a janitor, I say, hi, how you doing? I see the school principal, hi, how you doing? I see another student, hi, how you doing? I can see a paraprofessional, secretary, no matter who it is. Always speak to them. And so, or her. And that, is a genuine thing, because you build, and speaking, be genuine about it. Don't just like, hey, just because, okay, this is going to give me some gain. But it's just like, be genuine about it, because, being nice to people is free. So, it comes back. I'm telling you, it comes back to you. Which do I say?
I was going to say, you've also talked about having a mentor. How important is having a mentor on the job or in your PhD program been to you?
Oh, really, really, really important. So like my mentor, since she left, like I have a different mentor. She's the one that's in the PhD program. Now, having her as my mentor helps because, I mean, I think no matter what age she was, I think she's a year younger than me, but no matter what age she was, I think we'd have had a good relationship. But me being able to contact her, but hey, you know, can you help me with something? Or the basketball side, the same thing. Got a friend named Amon Hardeman. He was my teammate. Now he's like my mentor for everything. And, you know, I used to run things by him and stuff like that. Just being able to talk to somebody to validate your opinion sometimes, you know, to get a second opinion. Or here's the biggest thing. A lot of people go like, hey, let me just hear what I got to say, you know, and tell me if you like it or not. And people leaving at that black and white, tell me if you like it or not. If you really have a good mentor, you talk to them and they can build and make your idea better. So your idea could not even be bad, but it probably could be better. And so that's just the big part about, like, you know, having a mentor. Like, you can be much better with having somebody guide you. And your mentor could easily be anybody, like anybody that you trust. They just have to have knowledge in what you're doing.
Mhm. So how did you go out and seek a mentor for your teaching job, or did Battle High School assign you a mentor? How did that happen?
Yeah, they assigned me a mentor. It's actually funny because
That's awesome that they have that kind of program.
yeah, so it's actually mandated by the state. So like you're
Oh,
teaching, yeah, you're mandated to have a mentor. If you mentor, you don't get certified. And so yeah, it's mandated by the state. So it's really a good thing, and they get some good people to be mentors. Like it's some amazing mentors. So they don't just stick you with anybody. And so even after that, I think it's always good to have like some type of mentor. So like I'm on this for basketball, we don't get one. We just our mentors, quote unquote, like who we had the best relationship with. But like this program I'm with called Rising Coaches, they have like a mentor program. So I plan to like kind of enroll in that, you know, the mentor side of that. Just so I can have somebody, you know, to guide me, to tell me and stuff like that. Cause I'm gonna keep saying having a mentor and then getting advice from people is like two different things. Like a mentor is somebody who, like, you know, constantly check in with you, or like, you know, just give you the realness out of the situation. Getting advice to somebody's like, oh, this is what I do. You know, a mentor is like really, really genuine.
Oh, well, I mean, we've talked about a lot of your successes in, you know, finding a job and networking stuff, but have you faced any roadblocks applying for a job?
Yes, that's the roadblock, I think, and I'm gonna start off with teaching again because like hopefully this motivate African American males to be teachers. But we're a high commodity, like, you know, we're rare. At the school I'm at is mainly African American kids that go there. So like it heightened my chance even more for me being there. But no matter what, I think that I'd have been a great fit just because like a lot of the kids I already knew prior, you know, just from me living down here since 2008, you know, so a lot of the kids I already know. So if I'm pretty sure I probably would have had a good chance getting a job if I'd have come straight out of college and people never knew me. But just it makes it much better that the kids had a great relationship with me. So that played into a favor. I think if I was at a different, I'll be honest. Well, I actually applied to, it's kind of hurt my feelings. I actually applied to the school, to Hickman, where I was coaching at, and they didn't even interview me. And like, yeah, and so I was like, you know, I'm trying to get over it, but I mean, forgiveness is in my religion. But I didn't get an interview, and I was just like, you know, that kind of hurts me because it kind of runs into the stereotype, like, okay, black guy as a coach, is that all you can shrink me to be? Like I can't be an educator. I'm not. I can coach at your school, but I'm not good enough to be an educator in your building. That's not. So I was just like, that's weird. To a battle, like, we don't care if you coach or not. We don't care what you do. They never once pressured me into even try to, because we're rivals. So like when I was coaching at Hickman and teaching at Battle never once, they'd make jokes, but they never once pressured me like, you should coach over here. You should coach over here. never once, because they genuinely wanted me in the building. Like, they could care less about, you know, not even saying they don't care about sports, but they could care less about sports. It's important to the kids to have a good education. So like, but I think things work out. Like, my mentor, mom, was just like, I think it worked out great. I don't think you would have liked Hickman as much as you like Battle. So I think it worked out for you. That, and then when I apply to head coaching jobs, like, that's another one. They don't give me no interviews. Like, I get no interviews. I think, one, because a lot of people don't know me, and two, it maybe be experience, but like, I'm a guy, and this is where the I've been like this since I was young. You know, give people a chance. To me, give people a chance, and I do what I do. Like, I've proven. Granted, I've never coached. You know, I've never been a head coach of a high school or a head coach of a college, but I've been proven enough, and you know, I could have other coaches vouch for me that, like, you know, I'm legit at what I do. And so, like, I don't care if I have 2 years or 50 years on my resume. Like, give me a shot. Like, you know, or at least give me an interview. And so, like, I applied to a job in Kansas City. The head principal there was assistant principal at Hickman when I was there, when I was a senior. And so, like, he spoke good things about me. My head coach spoke good things about me to the AD, and AD like called both of them, asked them about me, never got an interview. And I was just like, you know, that's just crazy, because, like, you know, from the realness of the situation, especially what's all going on with the Black Lives Matter unit, is that it's predominantly whites that, you know, dominate a lot of professions. And so, like, and I noticed with my own eyes, because when I went to work the basketball camp and all the other coaches was there, I think it maybe was like 3 black there, maybe. And so me, I know for sure another guy and maybe another guy. And so, but you run into those people that they genuinely care. Like, some of them probably do care, some of them probably don't. I mean, they maybe they on the front when I was there, but I think they genuinely care. But, like, you know, when you have a strong foundation of a culture to where, okay, a family tree, like 3 generations ran through a head coach, and they're probably looking for the 4th generation, to where, like, a family member, like, okay, we're gonna give it to, you know, Jake when he gets older, stuff like that. And so that's what makes almost like, I don't know if you all know anything about PE jobs, but getting a coaching job, like, I'm gonna say in Missouri, not when you say in Missouri, in smaller areas is as hard as getting a PE job. Like, do you all know about PE jobs?
No.
People never leave. People are PE teachers. Man, that is like probably the hardest job to get as a teacher, because people take that job and they don't leave that job until they retire. Like, they don't. And so, or until they get a better position, but generally they don't leave that job. And so,
Do you think they don't leave because it's so hard to find a job, or do you think they just really enjoy the school that they're teaching at? I wonder what that's all about.
in Missouri, I think it's a combination of multiple things. But I don't, do you all know about the teacher retirement in Missouri?
Yeah, I've heard it's one of the best.
Best retirement. So once you get a job, like I started 2 years ago. If I'm a teacher for 30 years in Missouri, I'm retiring at 55, without a doubt.
Wow.
Yeah, because like the retirement is really good. I probably get paid more in retirement than I do now. And so I think people get the job and figure out, you know, it's great. And then a lot of people that coach teach PE. So if they having some good stints, you know, some good years, they gonna stay. Like, you know, Rockbridge coach here in Columbia. I don't know how long he's been at Rockbridge, but he's a PE teacher and he's been there for a long time. Now he just retired as a PE teacher, but you know, some people just don't leave. They want to stick with that job.
And you've had so much success, you know, with networks and making these contacts and following up with these guys, but then you just face these roadblocks with these interviews. How did you grapple with that, with emotions? I'm sure you had several emotions going on.
I honestly, I still haven't grappled with it. Like, it upsets me, to be quite honest. Like, I just, you know, a lot of the reason why I even apply for those jobs, and like I may just even say it like the next time, you know, well, now I got a college year under my belt, so it may be a little different. But I just tell them like, hey, just give me an interview. I've never been to the head coaching interview. Just give me an interview so I can know what it's like, so I can prep. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. I think that was the biggest thing of me not knowing what I'm doing wrong. Like, it's so much of an unknown because I had over quarantine watched a ton of podcasts, and one podcast was just like interviewing about like head coaching jobs, and the guy was just like, to be quite frank, they're looking for the smallest thing to throw out an application. So he was just like, if it's a good pool, like a huge pool, they deal breaker be like, we need 10 years of coaching. All these candidates don't have 10 years, throw them out. Where we're at now. And so like I think that's like what it is. And I feel like you lose good candidates like that. Like somebody that can bring you something that you never had. And that's like I feel like the uniqueness that I'll tell anybody when you go to an interview. And what I've learned is just like, no matter if it's teaching or if it's coaching or no matter the interview is, it could be a doctor. You want to try to make them know that you're unique. Like you want to bring them something that they never had before, and you have to sell them on that. Because if 10 people come in like the same interview, it'll make it tough to pick because it's just like, oh well, who we like the best, who we had a better feeling about, and then they'll go from there to a point to where like. Me personally, I mean, sneak peek for any school that hired me, but in my book that I've been reading that Amanda sent me was like, no, it actually wasn't a book. It was in the podcast. The community is my biggest thing, especially what's going on now, the community. I'm focusing on community because in Fulton, like I guarantee like people are behind the Hornets, but like if you made a point to directly involve the community, you bring something school never had, and then you feel like you feel like Mizzou, or you feel like a LSU, or you feel like a Alabama, to where like all they bleed is the school colors, and now you set a culture. Now at that point, you set a culture. 5 years down the line, when you discipline a student, you don't have parents going trying to be upset with you, like, oh well, I don't think that's fair. The culture is set. Parents gonna be like, I mean, Dre been here for years. That's the standard he got, so you're gonna have to, to the occasions. So like you gotta make yourself unique in those interviews.
I think interviewing in general is something scary for most of our students, and I think with the rejection, it's hard to move past those rejections, especially if you get them over and over and over again. Yeah. It's hard to take those personally. And I don't really have any good advice or any real wisdom to share with you or with our listeners I know several students who are experiencing that right now. They're just getting rejection after rejection.
Yeah.
Especially in this job market, this current climate that we're in with COVID happening. Many people have lost their jobs. Yeah. Many employers aren't hiring.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of stuck in this place of applying and not being able to really move forward. You're not moving that year forward at all. I was reading an article, and I can't think of the exact phrase that was used, but they were basically saying that we need to remember when we get rejected from a job interview, like not even getting selected to be interviewed or interviewing and then not being selected or not being hired, we have to tell ourselves they just haven't seen our value. Yeah. You have value, Dre. Michelle has value. I have value. All of our listeners, you are a valuable asset to your community. And because an organization, an employer hasn't interviewed you or they haven't hired you, doesn't lessen your value at all. I agree. They just don't see it. And why would you want to work for someplace that hasn't seen that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like your mom and your mentor mentioned about Hickman. They didn't see your value, what you could bring to them. And that's okay. Battle High School did.
Yep.
That's where you are now, and that's where you need to be, because they value you, they see what you can do for the students, for your coworkers. So I think, we just, our listeners or students need to just remember that your value, your abilities aren't lessened from all of these rejections. You just haven't found the right place yet, and it will happen.
I agree.
It will happen.
And I think too, just surrounding yourself with your support network, being around people who are, naturally supportive of you. I went through a period years ago, about 10 years ago now, where I was employed for 6 months and I was preparing to go to grad school, and I was applying to jobs and just kept getting a rejection or just no answer back from employers. And this is when we were going, through the recession or behind the recession anyway. And I kept hearing some of the podcasts I was listening to at the time is like, you are not your job. I think Americans are so intertwined. They intertwine their identity with their job. When you go out to a network or a networking event or someplace, what's the first question people ask you? What do you do for a living?
Yeah.
I think it's all tied in together. And so when especially our seniors who graduate and struggle with finding work, it's an impact to their ego, to their sense of identity. And just like you said, Mandy, it's just reminding themselves of their value and, doing stuff for yourself while you're out looking for a job, doing self-care. We're all big about self-care here on campus and in the Wellness Center and the Student Success Center, really doing things to nurture yourself, surrounding yourself with people who love you unconditionally, just getting that support and, and that those people can encourage you to keep trying, so.
Yeah. Dre, I want to go back to something you mentioned. You were talking about going to camps in Missouri here and noticing that you are in the minority. You, as a person of color, there were very few coaches of color in these camps. Have you felt that you are in the minority while you've been living in Columbia, while you were on campus at Westminster? How have you felt growing up in a rural area where we are there? It is predominantly white. How have you gone through your life? How have you? I don't know what Clay. Hold on, I gotta stop here. I gotta think about the question. How I want this question, but okay, I'm gonna start over, Dre.
Okay.
This is why we're recording this.
Yeah.
And it's not live. So you mentioned previously when you were talking about job interviewing and your past experiences, you went to some coaching camps within the state and you noticed that you were one of maybe 3 or just a handful of coaches of color. What has been your experience while living in the middle of Missouri regarding the racial communities within this area? Do you notice that you are in a minority whenever you go to basketball games or whenever you go to professional functions? And how have you handled it? Does it affect you in how you respond to people or in what you do in those events or those games? Can you please share your experience?
Yeah, so let's say I'll go with the professional event. It's funny because it's funny, and I know that people don't mean to do it, but I think it's actually cool because it's it's recognition. It's like, all right, that make me feel good because you actually want to have a conversation. So when I go places and if I'm the only Black guy, all eyes come on me. Like, funniest thing, when we was having our trainings before COVID hit, and we'll have our new teacher meeting. So all the first year teachers, we'll sit in a big circle. It's called a restorative circle. And we'll talk about controversial things that basically deal with the minority. Anytime I start to move my mouth to speak, all eyes just turn to me. And it was like me and this only other black dude. No, it was probably like 4 black people there. It was like I think it was either it was me and another black guy for sure, and I think it was a black woman. But all eyes are like whipped towards me. But it's funny because it's a genuine, like they actually want to hear what I got to say because they know I experienced it. You know, it's not more so of like, you know, in ignorance. And it's funny because like my friends that I teach with, my colleagues, I was like, I hate one of those because I know that like as soon as we get on a controversial topic, everybody just want to hear what I got to say. And it was just like, you know, you should, like, you know, your voice need to be heard. Like, you know, we appreciate that, stuff like that. So they reassured me. Like, I think it's funny and I'm willing to speak, but I just know how like some people are like dying, like, oh my God, like I want to hear like the true experience, because here's the thing that we're running into in America. And I think this is the reason why racism is recycled. The ones who are racist, and I don't even believe in white privilege, but that's another topic. But
Really interesting. Okay, well, let's put a pin in that.
Okay, yeah, because I'm living it. But the ones who like are racist are typically, they just don't know. They don't understand like what goes on, you know, what we went through. They just know like we don't like black people, so to say. And so that's just a bland thing that you can eat, that it can be. Now, I guarantee that if a racist person probably was hurt and a black person helped them, and they was like dying, I guarantee that they had a lot of person to help them. And so like, and then from that point, you're like, you know, it's almost like an animal, so to say. I used to be scared of spiders, but I realized when I got older that spiders don't actually want to hurt you; they actually want to get away from you. And so once you realize that, like, it's a lot of spiders I don't kill because I'm just like, oh well, you know, I'm just he's all right. And so once you understand that, I think as humans, once we understand, like, oh okay, like they actually come in peace. They didn't do any wrongdoing to me. Like I've been profiled. I've, you know, been in racist situations, but I never was like, oh, I never want to get on a podcast with Michelle and you guys because you all are white. Like no, that doesn't shape my thought process. So if I had a bad experience with somebody, I just like, oh, that was just somebody I had a bad experience with. There's billions of other people on earth. Now, coaching wise, like it depends. Like I spoke about this in an article that I had when I went to coach in the Ozarks. We was getting beat by like 20. And like, you know, like my coaching style is intense. Like I'm, you know, barking out calls. I'm, you know, yelling at my players. Like, you know, like I kind of black out when I coach. Like I go into the mode. Yeah, like we gonna win this game and I'm gonna give you my all. And so like I don't know what it is, man. Either it's me, it's the school. I don't know what it is, but the Missouri. Oh, never mind. I keep it to myself. Just the refs just wasn't too fond of me holding them accountable on a lot of things, and so it went from they was getting upset to now I could see the fans. Like I said in Mark, best way I could put it is they probably just thought I was ghetto, like I was a ghetto guy. Oh, like. I got them on their heels and we cut the game down to like 3 seconds up. I mean, like 3 points, and it was like a few seconds up. Like they was everybody on the edge of their seat at that point. So right before the varsity game, I was the head JV coach. So they like, oh my God, like, and then so we ended up losing, but I wanted them to know, and it's more so on my players. I wanted them to know we're not going down without a fight. I don't care how far we're 3 hours away from where we're from. We're not gonna go down, you know, and roll over. We're not. And it's evident, not to make it controversial, but I know you all seen a map of the presidential election in Missouri. Mm-hmm. So it's evident, like where we go, my kind are just isn't, I won't say like, but isn't like, you know, like, oh, here go one of these guys. And so I'll probably say I left that place at a much better place because they're probably like, okay, even though that was unique, they lost by 3. We didn't roll them over. I guarantee some people went home and probably was like, even though he was insane and that was different, he a pretty good coach. Yeah, I mean that's just the best way to put it. And other events as well. Like even when I go like the coaching events, like to a tournament, like depending on where it's at, like Lynn, for example, the refs there ain't, put it like this. And my team is not even predominantly black. That's what make it crazy. My AAU team. I think I had like two black kids on my team, everybody else was white. But here's the thing. I'm an aggressive coach. I make my team play aggressive defense. So we get no calls. Like literally, like the fouls that we get called on, we don't get those calls back because we're the aggressor. Like I can't help, and I tell these refs, I sometimes I tell them before the game, I can't help that my team is way more athletic. I can't help that they're faster. I can't help that they're knowledgeable. I can't help that they're more aggressive. Like it's not my fault. The game, like the game's supposed to be reps. Because at that point, and we could dig deep, and it's a whole other topic to where like it can get into the heated battle to where I get upset. Now you're oppressing my team because of me. We're oppressed because I can't get no calls because they're the aggressor. That's how black people looked at. We're aggressive. We hurt just because my team is going out and do what we do to win the game. Now, let's flip it to the other side. Go to a bigger city. Like I said, we look at the presidential map. Go to Kansas City. My team, we're shrink at that point. We played the number 1 6th grade team in the nation from St. Louis. Number 1 6th grade team. The best team in the country. They beat the sleeves off us. I didn't get upset. I knew what I was getting myself into. It killed us. And the refs actually called more fouls in a predominantly black town more than they did in a small town. And I was just like, that's where it's just like, we just got to be real about the situation. We can't, we get taught this in the profession. And I skipped the teaching. It's called implicit bias. Like we have to know that we have it before we step somewhere else, because if we don't know, if you go in like, oh no, I don't think everybody's the same. And then, the old saying is where I'll see a black person, I clutch my purse. That's implicit bias because all black people is. I don't think all white people is racist, to be quite honest. Like I go in and like I get a good feel for people, but like even if you are, like think about it. If we work together, we still have a job to do. Like that's it. Like we still got a job to do. And nobody's perfect. They're all. I'm not too smart, but there are many isms out there. So it could be sexism. Like I work with a female, and she probably think that I'm not even me. I won't say that as bad as I am because I'm actually a good person. But somebody else is like, oh, he just think he King Tut, like he's a male. He just think he running and stuff like that. So I won't just straight blame it on the race, but I'm just like some people a lot of people have implicit bias.
I wonder what, and I don't expect Dre for you to answer this, but I'm wondering out loud, how can we move past? How can we get rid of this thing that's ingrained in all of us, where it's, for I think many people, it's kind of it's in your subconscious and you don't even realize what you're doing, like clutching your purse. Maybe you don't realize that you're clutching your purse when you're around a black man. It's at the movies where you see a lot of the bad guys in movies are Black men who are angry. Like, how can we get past these stereotypes that are just thrown at us, to where we can be more open-minded and be more, I don't want to sound like a hippie from the 70s, but we need to show more love to everybody. How can we move past these violent things that we see on the news or in movies, these stereotypes that just keep coming at us, to realize, hey, we just need to love each other. We're all the same. We're all here on this earth together. We're all trying to get to the end together. And we just need to love each other and help each other. But I don't know how that can happen. How can
I got a suggestion.
That?
so I missed the part, and this is now where I could talk about it because you reminded me. Westminster campus is a great place. Build diversity. So I'm gonna start off with basketball, obviously, because I love it. Coach Mitchell he's a cool coach. He's a decent coach. I feel like that he could have promoted us to actually be more as a team. So what I mean by that was, I think we had, let me see. I think we had 7 black guys on the team, and I think the rest was white. And so the big divider was a lot of them was in a fraternity. So they didn't want anything to do with us outside of basketball. Some of the guys didn't even want nothing. Some of the black guys, I say they didn't want nothing to do with them. But it's some of us that genuinely tried to build that relationship. And I feel like if we would have been a lot closer, we would have been better. We went 5-25 like my first year there. And all the black guys was just like, I mean, we kept it G. I mean, I keep it honest, you know, Coach Mitchell, obviously I choose who I play, I choose who I cut, I choose who start, like stuff like that. You know, I've been humbled when I went to Missouri Valley, but I feel like I was a lot better than some of the guys that was being played. And I don't think he did that purposely by race, but you know, I've heard, I can't validate, but I've heard other people like Caucasians complain about like other black guys on the team. And like I said, I can't validate it, but like, you know, that's not okay. If that's the case, anytime I had a problem, and I'm young, I'm literally when I'm 27. So when I was 26, Battle taught me restorative circles. Anytime we had an issue, we all set chairs around as a JV team. I'd like, I cancel practice. We're about to figure out what's going on. So let's talk. That's how you move past things. Like we can't just be like, oh well, we come have this private talk and I give you the best advice and then you know you take it or leave it. No, it's just like, here's what's apparent, this is what's going on, we're gonna fix the issue. Like I won't say for example, like the campus life, I feel like it's crazy. When I tore my ACL, but I wasn't gonna play my senior year anyway. But when I found out my ACL was tore, I probably had more fun and like more people on campus being away from basketball than I did with basketball. So when I was away, I met more people. There's still people I have on Snapchat that I talk to that are really cool, that I used to, you know, room with. So it's like being in front of those people for them to see who you are is what's real. But if you don't be in front of those people, like as a basketball team, we didn't hang out. We didn't hang out. White people hung out with white people, black people hung out with black people. If it's me, I'm purposely going to remember the Titans mode. You're partner with him, you partner with him, you partner with him for a week, or you just figure out this person. We did that at the beginning of the season at Stevens. We first couple of practices, like tell us something that you didn't know about somebody else. And like, boom, there you go. You growing relationships at that point. Like you have as a head, I won't say as a head coach, as the head of anything, you have to promote this. So like us on this podcast, some people probably like, I would never have a black person on the podcast, no matter what the podcast could be. It could be the most educated, it could be the most ignorant. But they see this is probably like, man, he has some good insight. I think I know a guy or know a girl from up the way I heard about that may have a good story. I may not agree with it, but let me just get it out to the public. And then that's when you like hear it genuinely for yourself, and you like oh, like I hear where they coming from, like and then you educate yourself at that point. So if you're in it, you have to realize you're in it, and then you have to educate yourself.
Besides what happened within the basketball team here on campus, were there any other incidences? Were there any other frustrating parts about being a student of color here on campus?
Honestly, I say no. I just felt like I felt like even though it wasn't many of us on campus, I felt like I fit in. Like I really fit in with a lot of people. Like I got to have conversations because people, it was one of those things to where since I was so unique, people genuinely wanted to like know and hear what I had to share. So that's what made it fun and made it easier to make relationships with people, because it was just like, oh, well, like, they probably come from a town where they don't see many black people. And it's probably like, oh, well, I'm interested to know about him. It's not like I'm gonna be ignorant. And it's just amazing like how that I've had a good experience, so to say. I won't even say like I had a bad one. Like I'm trying to think if I had like a horrible one, and even thinking back, like even computer labs, everybody was nice. went to eat dinner. People was nice. I mean, it wasn't like anybody looked at me the wrong way. Like I feel like, you know, it was genuine.
Well, that's good to
It's
hear.
good to hear, yeah.
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 Well, I think we're winding down the end of the interview here, but is there anything that we've missed today that you want to talk about, or a question that you've never been asked before that you want to be asked?
Let me think. Oh, well, and then for anybody that's trying to look for a job and get into the profession, I won't say take any job, but if there's something that can level you up, or like you can possibly work towards, take that job. And I've learned that. Like I've been blessed to be a assistant coach at a class 5 school and then go to be assistant college coach. Like that's rare. Like that never happens. Normally
Yeah.
end up being like a manager, then working their way up. Like a guy that's a head coach now in St. Louis that was assistant with me at Hickman. He started off as a volunteer. The head coach now started off as a volunteer. So, you know, just take a low level job, and you just don't know where it may go, because if you're not getting high level pay, you're getting high level knowledge. I'm telling you, you are getting high level knowledge no matter what. So I say do those things, and don't let pay dictate what you want to do until you have a family and you're established. Now, I got a Libra scale. If my pay and my happiness doesn't equal out, I don't want the job. One can outweigh the other. Like it can't. I can't be happy and not make a lot of money. I can't make a lot of money and not be happy. They both have to even out. And if it don't, and here's the thing. If you balance in two careers like me, you know, or if you're in a career that like you feel like you can easily go into another career, don't be afraid to quit it. Like, you know, I don't want to scare anybody, but I've been really thinking about, since COVID been going on, I've been calling like a lot of things that the district been doing, and I'm telling you, if they make this decision, I'm going to be a principal. Lord behold, the plan that I didn't even tell anybody, I just told my close people, I was like, I guarantee this was gonna happen. They chose the plan. I knew that it was gonna happen before they even made the plan. I knew it was gonna happen, and I was like, I'm going to be a principal. So if I don't like where basketball is going, because I feel like it's going in like a political direction, I'll probably quit coaching and become a principal. So don't be afraid to like leave a profession and go to another profession. Because like at any moment, if I get a D1 job, I'm leaving teaching to go get paid like $100,000. So don't be afraid to do that.
Remember us.
I will.
Well, so I think we've wrapped up our main questions, but we wanted to remind our viewers, or listeners rather, that we have a word of the day that we let our guest speaker pick out. And our word of the day, will release this podcast next Friday, the 13th. And then through the 13th through the 20th, if you want to email CareerServe, we can enter you to for a drawing from the Center for Faith and Service, which, by the way, Center for Faith and Service and the Black are sponsoring these podcasts. So what would you like the word of the day to be, Dre?
Let me see. Probably courage, since we were talking about probably courage.
I like that. Okay. So we're going to go to our rapid fire questions here at the end. So Dre, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word probably is I'll probably say pressure a lot. I probably use pressure for anything.
I'm sure your athletes hear that a lot. What is your least favorite word?
Least favorite word is probably scared.
Scared. What sound or noise do you love?
Say it again.
What sound or noise do you love?
Probably sound or noise. This is a good one. I'll probably say the TV. Like I used to fall asleep with the TV on, and I still like it. Like I can't fall asleep with it on, but if I hear it, it's like kind of soothing.
Oh, gotcha. What sound or noise do you hate?
Probably the police, fire, and ambulance sirens. I probably hate that the most.
Yeah. Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, without a doubt, being a doctor. Hands down.
Doctor. That's coming back. And what profession would you not like to do?
It's gonna sound odd just because I'm a teacher, but probably be a professor at a college.
Why is that?
I think it's a in high school. It's funny. In high school, you got kids dying to pass. In college, you got kids that if they don't get an A, your life gonna be frustrating. So, so it's like in high school, they're just trying to survive. So it's like it's easier to help people that's like surviving because people who are passing, you don't really have to worry about. But in college, everybody wants to pass. So your job will be stressful.
Yeah. Yeah, I second that. Well, thank you again for joining us for today's podcast. Again, we're sponsored by the Center for Faith and Service in Black Student Union. We'll release this podcast on Friday, November 13th at 4 o'clock. So thank you for coming today.
I appreciate y'all having me.